What's going on, guys? War Brothers Collectibles here. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And welcome to the actual Dr. Loomis Diaries. So I've done a few videos now on my channel, so-called the Dr. Loomis Diaries. You know, I have a playlist about all things Halloween and all things Dr. Loomis and my love for the franchise. But this is the actual original Dr. Loomis Diaries that I actually wrote. It's a kind of a short story when I was about 12 or 13. I actually spent probably about a week maybe writing this. You know, this was my just basically a fan fiction, you know, my love for the franchise up until this point. I was a huge fan of Halloween 4, 5 and 6, and especially that 5-year period between Halloween 5 and 6, you know, what actually happened. So I took it upon myself to actually write a short story called the Dr. Loomis Diaries. Now, I reread this last night, probably for the first time in like 10 years, and it's pretty terrible, to be honest. You know, it's not great. It's just something that I wrote as a fan as a young teenager. But I tried to bridge the gap between Halloween 5 and 6, you know, that 5-year period where there was no films. I just tried to tell the story about what happened in between. So I begin with a recap of Halloween 4 and 5 and how about Dr. Loomis. Basically, remember that scene in Halloween 6 where Dr. Loomis is at the typewriter at the beginning? I took this as this is the story that he was writing. You know, he was writing his memoir, so to speak. So this is probably, in my view, when I wrote this is what he was writing or finishing off at the beginning of Halloween 6. You know, just telling his story about what happened over the years. So I begin with a recap of Halloween 4 and 5. And then I first pick this up when Michael gets released from the jail at the end of Halloween 5. You know, the man in black breaks him out of jail and Jamie kind of wanders around this empty prison, like, you know, being hysterical. I write it as the police picks Jamie up later that night and take her into protective custody. And then it fast forward to a year of 1990, a year later from Halloween 5, where Dr. Loomis is kind of like Jamie's caretaker and he's watching over her. And she's been moved out of Haddonfield and she's been moved to Philadelphia. Now, why I chose Philadelphia, I don't know. I couldn't answer that question. But she's been moved with another foster care family to Philadelphia, where Dr. Loomis is just keeping an eye on things. And then one day Michael decides to come back. The Halloween of 1990, he decides to come back for Jamie. So Dr. Loomis takes it upon himself, of course, to protect her. So he gets in contact with the police department and they bring a massive like team, a SWAT team, you know, Marines, you know, full tactical gear, you know, probably about 10 to 20 soldiers. And I wrote it as like, they're in the house. Jamie is barricaded upstairs with the foster parents and Dr. Loomis is in the house, you know, keeping an eye on things. And there's like a front and back garden or yard to the house. And they've got snipers on the roof. I write it like in the back garden. Nothing's going on in the front garden. They all think it's a waste of time. Nothing's happening. Michael's not going to show up. And then in the back garden, there's like a huge patch of grass, like a huge lawn. And there's a massive hedge going around it. And all the soldiers have like built this massive trench in like a square shape going around the grass. And, you know, they're undercover, you know, they've dug themselves in, you know, they're hiding in the bushes, in the hedgerow. And then Michael, it's quite a suspenseful scene in my opinion. And Michael just comes up behind them and starts taking them out one by one. And, you know, gets rid of about 5 or 6 of them, silently slitting their throats, you know, pulling them back and killing them before one of the soldiers actually notices him. And then they draw Michael out into an open part of the lawn. And then they put these big floodlights on him and they all this is pretty much the opening to Jason Goes to Hell, but at that point I hadn't seen that film. I just wrote it for this Dr. Loomis Diaries. So the army sees him, they unleash hell on him. They've got these big mounted machine guns. They're mowing him down, you know, they're shooting the hell out of him. He drops to the floor. And then they go to inspect the kill, and then he stabs the guy in the neck. That's another guy down, and then they keep shooting Michael, they keep shooting him. And then what they've done is they've set traps, like they've set tripwires around the place and claymore mines, like in the ground. So Michael falls back on a tripwire, and then he gets blown into the air, and his arm flies off. And then, you know, the army goes into the house to get Dr. Loomis, and then he's gone. The man in black took him away. And then they're like, he's probably going to come back tonight, you know, so we'll wait. This is only the first wave of the attack. And then Michael comes back about an hour later, And then again, the sniper, this time he comes around to the front of the house, and the snipers are shooting him down, from the roof, and then but Michael actually throws the knives at the snipers and knocks them off the roof. It's really quite an exciting sequence. Really, I enjoyed writing it at the time. And then Michael steps on a claymore mine, and he literally gets blown in the air. Both his legs fly off, half his chest gets blown out, there's blood everywhere. Dr. Loomis is like, no, he's dead. Like, he's not coming back. Like, this is it. Michael's done for sure now. And then so he's like dead on the floor. And then the police come, chain him down. They're taking no chances. They all get the men on him, and they take him to a maximum security facility where he's going to stay forever there in lock and key underground in this proper like secure place where he can't even move. But then I write like another year later, the Man in Black and his cult members, the Cult of Thorn, break into the prison, the maximum security place, kill everybody. They break Michael out, and then they take him to an ancient sanctuary and bring him back to life with, black magic and, the Thorn ritual, and bring him back to life. And they give him prosthetic limbs, like an arm and metal legs, and they give him a metal chest plate. So he's pretty much becoming like the Terminator now, so he's even more invulnerable to damage. And then he tracks Jamie down again and goes, but this time the police are like, no, Michael's dead, he's not coming back. But somehow Dr. Loomis manages to convince a small squad of police officers to like, no, you've got to come to the house, Michael's coming tonight. And then the conclusion of the story is written like, again, Michael this time he breaks into the house, and it's really close quarters combat. He's hacking up all the police officers. And then Dr. Loomis draws Michael outside, finally gets him outside the house to come after Dr. Loomis. Dr. Loomis gets a knife thrown at him, and he gets stabbed in the chest. So Dr. Loomis is down. He's supposedly dying on the floor. Michael goes upstairs to finally get Jamie, but then foster parents, start shooting him. I'm really disappointed with that since I read this last night. All they do is the foster parents kind of shoot Michael down with a revolver, and then they go outside to get Dr. Loomis, or to run to Dr. Loomis's aid, and they're like, we've just called the police, they're on their way, they're going to get him again. Big SWAT team turn up, state police or whatever, and then they realise that Michael's not upstairs, he's gone, and that's the ending. So it's kind of like, doesn't directly lead into Halloween 6, there's still a couple more years up until that film, but I was really disappointed with the way I wrote that ending, and it just ends where Dr. Loomis is like, well, Michael's gone, but he's sure to be back one day. Hopefully Michael would not come back, but I knew in my heart that he would someday. I pray and hope that day will never come. You can't kill evil. That's kind of like where I leave the Dr. Loomis Diaries. So something happens in the meantime where the cult finally gets hold of Jamie and Michael again, and then that leads into Halloween 6. The way I actually wrote this was Dr. Loomis was aware of the cult and aware of this Man in Black that keeps taking Michael away and bringing him back to health, which of course is not the case in Halloween 6. So I've kind of like retconned, and there's some continuity errors there in this, but hey, I was fine. I was just writing what I wanted to write. I enjoyed writing this story, and I just I really like that aspect, that scene where he gets drawn out into the open and they're shooting him and he gets his body parts blown out. This big epic action sequence which has never been adapted into a film unless you count Jason Goes to Hell, which, as I say, I'd never seen that film while I was writing this, so it's just pure coincidence that those scenes are very, very similar. This will never obviously get made into a film or a TV show, but I think it's an interesting concept. Not necessarily my story, but why not do a Dr. Loomis Diaries? Something about his time at Smith's Grove and watching over Michael, or do something like this, like in between the films where Michael is on the loose, nobody knows where he is. Like, you could essentially pick it up from Halloween 4. You could ignore Halloween 5 at this point and do a Dr. Loomis Diaries about what happened after that, and maybe do a series of him, moving Jamie around the country, into protective custody, and just something like that is kind of interesting. Or just do something else entirely, but featuring the character of Dr. Loomis. Could they bring Donald Pleasance back using AI and motion capture? They totally could do that. With the technology today, that could be a really cool thing to do. I mean, out of respect, they shouldn't do it, I don't think. Donald Pleasance, was an amazing actor, and he, played Dr. Loomis brilliantly, and it was just such a shame that he was never able to complete Halloween 6 the way he would have wanted to complete the film. He died shortly after production, wrapped on that film before they did the reshoots, unfortunately. But could they totally do it? Yeah, they totally could. They kind of did it in Halloween Kills. They brought Dr. Loomis back and with a lookalike actor and, a sound-alike actor. So it's totally possible. And, I think Dr. Loomis is, he's the major part of the Halloween franchise. It's not the same without him. So with the future of the series uncertain now, because the Blumhouse trilogy has ended, why not bring back Dr. Loomis? I get it, out of respect. They're probably not going to do that, but hey, they totally could. And there's so many more adventures with Dr. Loomis that are possible here. So again, anything is possible at this point, especially with the technology. So this is actually the original Dr. Loomis Diaries, as I say, that I wrote when I was 12 and 13. It's, as I say, it's not very good, but it was just fun to read last night, just to get some nostalgia and take a look back at this little project that I did many, many years ago. And yeah, it's just something interesting for me as a fan to really expand my imagination and look back on. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. This was just a look at my original Dr. Loomis Diaries. I do hope you enjoyed and you were curious about the whole Dr. Loomis character and what could happen in the future and what happened in between the films. And please let me know in the comments down below, guys. Have you ever made your own fan fiction? Have you ever wrote any character pieces on the character of Dr. Loomis or Michael Myers or Jamie Lloyd or Laurie Strode? Have you expanded your imagination beyond the films and done something creative and made your own Halloween stories or adventures? So if you like this video, guys, please just give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I really do appreciate all the support, and I will see you very soon. Take care.